Welcome to Bankable. I'm Doreen Abisundra, your host and a proponent of innovative technology and financing solutions for AI infrastructure, decarbonization, and energy security. This is the inaugural episode in the Bankable podcast. Today, we meet a technology company decarbonizing the global chemicals industry by processing used plastic into circular chemicals. Why the interest? Well, according to the International Energy Agency, the chemical sector is the largest industrial energy consumer and the third largest industry subsector of direct CO2 emissions. It's estimated the global chemical industry contributes no less than 5% of global greenhouse gas emissions and remains on an increasing trajectory. Hence, it seems vital to showcase Encina and its founder as a decarbonization pioneer.
Good, let's start. Hello, David. Welcome to Bankable, the podcast. So we are going to run through 5 key questions. I'll be the gatekeeper, and the idea is to showcase what you're doing. So let's start straight away with the very first question. So tell me, who are you and what describes you best?
Hey, Doreen, it's great to see you. I'm Dave Schwedel. I'm the founder and executive director of Encina Development Group. I'm primarily involved with the project financing around our business. We are decarbonizing the global chemicals industry by taking waste streams and converting them through a fluidized bed system into circular chemicals for use by our end customers. I have a long background in project financing, complex cross-border financings with an emphasis even on the venture capital and private equity markets. Been involved with over $2.1 billion worth of transactions over a 40-year career. My primary focus is on the small and medium-sized enterprises, predominantly involved with FCR, chemical manufacturing sectors, circular chemicals, recycling, etc.
Now tell us a little bit about what is your company's technology and business, please. Describe a little bit more about Encina.
Sure. So Encina is involved with decarbonizing the global chemicals industry. And the way we approach that is we take waste streams and we place them into a process which enables us to essentially crack them with a catalyst using a fluidized bed system, and we make circular chemicals. And these chemicals are used by our customers to make end products with everything from pharmaceutical goods, mattresses, to car parts, to all of the stuff that the entire human race relies on in their daily lives that we just really do take for granted.
And tell us a little bit more about that technology in terms of what exactly is the plastic, where are you sourcing that plastic from, and what exactly are the chemicals that are being made in that technology process?
Sure. So our primary focus is on waste streams. So when we speak about plastics, we're talking about, in our case, post-consumer plastics that typically would wind up in landfill or incineration. And these are plastics all number 1 through 7, if you will. We can use any of them. They don't have to be processed into a clean state, essentially. We can use them more or less as is. And then they're processed into a small flake form, if you will. They're then put into a molten state and injected into a reactor. That reactor, we call it a PFCC unit, a plastic fluidized catalytic cracker. We then use a catalyst where that mix is heated, and then we wind up getting a stream of chemicals that come out. We primarily produce benzene, we produce green methane, and we also produce some light cycle oils and some heavy cycle oils. And all of those products are used by our customers to make other downstream products. Generally speaking, there's 3 facets to the technology. You have a front-end processing area, which is able to take the plastic, put it into the molten state, and inject it into the reactor. You have the fluidized bed system, which is kind of the middle of the unit, if you will. And the back end is standard off-the-shelf chemical separation equipment that well-known companies like Honeywell UOP, Sulzer GTC, and others manufacture for essentially every refinery around the world.
Incredible. And if you can give us an example, like a layperson's example of a product that is made using one of those three chemicals that you mentioned.
Oh, wow. I mean, I can look at you right now and tell you that your headphones, right, eh, are made from that. The microphone that you're using, the clothes that we wear, right? When you get in your car and you look at your automobile, all the polycarbonate lenses that are used, everything that we take for granted in our daily lives, the foam insulation that goes into refrigerators. When you go shopping, let's say at a Walmart or a Costco or your local grocery store, and you wind up looking for a chicken cutlet, right? That's sitting on a foam tray. So those items as well, right? The foam that's there. So any type of polystyrene, etc., all through the gamut, everything that you take for granted in your daily life. Without these aromatics that they're called, our daily life wouldn't be what it is today.
Incredible. So, in a nutshell, how are you and Encina contributing to either the energy transition, AI infrastructure, or energy security? If you could just describe the holy grail that you and your business are seeking.
Yeah, that's a great question. So from our perspective, I think you have to take a general view of the chemicals industry. There's the basic chemical segment where we sit, which globally it's roughly a $600 billion marketplace. Within that, all of those chemicals that are produced, predominantly benzene, toluene, and xylenes in particular, are produced using uh, basic hydrocarbons. So we're talking about oil, right? Those items are cracked, and then you get these byproducts, these aromatic streams, and that's really what we're talking about. Today, where we sit as Encina, using our process, we are able to reduce greenhouse gases compared to traditional oil-based production of, say, benzene as an example. We're able to reduce those emissions by 48% as we sit today. That said, with our current project that we're working on in the US Gulf Coast, which we expect to kick off this year, that when I say kickoff, I'm referring to getting into pre-feed, feed, and then get to an FID state, and then eventually start construction, and then commissioning, and then production. With that said, we have methodologies to reduce those emissions by as much as 98%.
That's
So,
incredible number,
yeah, so,
98%.
yeah, so with that said, that when you compare that to traditional benzene production from oil, it's a night and day difference.
That's fantastic. Now, given the podcast is about bankability, tell us a little bit about your financing journey so far. What have you raised to date, and what do you need currently or for the future? As much as you can describe it.
Sure. So it's an interesting question because in the current environment that we're in, being bankable takes on a whole new meaning, right? You've had projects that were launched that are under construction today that are being challenged because of the current tariff environment and the uncertainty within the markets. Granted, that has settled down a little bit, but there's still some uncertainty there. So, putting that aside, uh, the way we position our project to be bankable, and I think this holds true for anybody that's launching either a folk related type of technology, right? Or someone that's using off the shelf technology and deploying it in the field. You have to make sure that you've got your full set of project finance documents covered. And in our case, that means we have our feedstock agreements, offtake, EPC, O&M, and our ground lease. And all of those must be what we consider to be bankable documents. And you know what that means, right? So a lot of work that's involved with that, a lot of different committees. You have to get approvals from the lenders that you're going to, your investment bankers, et cetera. Then you have to have some type of credit enhancements, and those usually will come in the area of an EPC providing a guarantee of sorts, right? Full wrap, turnkey. And if that's not there fully, then you have to supplement it with particular types of insurance products that will help offset the exposure to those risks. And in our case, we see one gap that could be a potential. So as a backup to that, we provide this insurance product, which are provided by the world's largest insurance companies. In addition to that, we make sure that the customers that we work with are bankable and that the offtake agreements themselves are bankable.
So maybe tell us a little bit more about that insurance product. What exactly is being insured?
So it's interesting because there's several, and this may be a future topic for you on another one of your podcasts, but it's interesting because different insurance providers provide different types of products. When we think of traditional insurance, we think of there's a loss, we make a claim, and then the check shows up magically in our mailbox, right? So there is a product that works similar to that, right? What we'll call technology risk insurance. We have other companies who refer to it as circular economy insurance, right? And then there's other coverages that act more like a debt reserve fund if it was a bond issuance. So in other words, when a claim is made, you are paying these premiums, right? So let's just say that the claim amount is $5 million for the sake of the conversation. The insurance company will make that payment after they've exhausted their legal remedy, which is typically going to the engineering firm or the EPC that's provided the services to, right, the project. And when those capital reserves have been tapped or they haven't been tapped at all, and let's say that delta is 5, they in turn provide that capital. But what happens is as the project starts to get back online again and your debt covenants are met and there's any distributions to equity, instead of those payments going to the equity investors, those payments would inure to the benefit of the insurance company that provided that $5 million payment. So you see how that kind of works more like a debt reserve fund. So those are the two key differentials that we've seen in the market. If you talk objectively with investment bankers and other financiers that provide capital in this market, they're also going to look for a history from these companies of actual payments that they've made in this sector. And since it's a relatively new sector, it's only been developed over the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years, there hasn't been a tremendous number of claims. But I would say objectively, and I won't say who those companies are, there's one company that has paid out more claims than the other, not because they have any more exposure than one or the other, just that they've been doing it a bit longer.
Got it. Really fascinating. We've heard so much about who you are personally, what Encina does, and obviously your financing journey. So we're going to likely have loads of investors from an equity debt perspective listening in. So David, tell us what, in a nutshell, makes Encina bankable.
Well, we're producing the only product of its kind in the world where we have the world's greatest and largest chemical companies as our long-term offtake partners, customers. I hate to call them customers because they are partners in our business. In terms of what makes us bankable is we have a team of folks that have worked in project financing for decades. We know how to make a project bankable. We know how to essentially wrap a project. So when you show up at the bank, they know how to lend against what we're delivering.
Super. So it's your people primarily, effectively, that make it bankable.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you have to know how to put the structure in place so the bank feels comfortable lending against it.
That's been really excellent hearing from you, David. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Doreen.
Thank you for listening to Bankable. For early access to energy transition pioneers And to learn how to structure the investment solutions described in this episode and throughout the series, subscribe to the podcast and get in contact at Fresco CleanTech Solutions.